government shutdown heading now officially into a third day after a bipartisan group of senators failed to come up with a compromise over the weekend on spending and immigration reform. Speaking to reporters on Capitol Hill last night, the Arizona senator, the Republican, Jeff Flake, says he's hopeful to resolve the impasse by midday today when they have a procedural vote scheduled in the Senate. Meanwhile, on the chamber floor, the Senate's top Democratic and Republican leaders trading blame for this shutdown. Listen.
It means more on a weekday than it does on the weekend. So hopefully, we can get it solved by noon.
Because the president wouldn't resolve months of ongoing negotiations over massive issues in one brief meeting and give the Democratic leader everything he wants, my friend across the aisle has shut down the government for hundreds of millions of Americans.
The president must take yes for an answer. Until he does, it's the Trump shutdown.
There you go. So, Lee, I think we should start with you on this. I don't know if you have data to back up who takes the blame here, but Trump shutdown versus Schumer shutdown. That's all we heard this week.
Well, it's certainly working in the benefit that the Schumer shutdown is an alliteration. So I think that's the one that's going to stick. The question, though, is what are the American people going to think? Right. And what I've seen so far, Republicans are standing by the president saying, fight for us, the American people. Democrats sticking with the Democrats saying, you know what, this whole Dreamers thing, totally unfair. Deal with DACA. And independents, I think, are saying, you know what, guys, enough is enough. Let's get it together, negotiate, and get things done for the American people. Something's got to give. The president has been willing to negotiate on DACA and has had, both sides together. But that's a separate issue from keeping the government open.
You know what I think is really interesting here is that after the market has run up so much in January, we get the government shutdown on Friday, we come in Monday morning, and we don't even have a sell-off. So I think that tells you the large market participants are looking at this saying whether it gets done today at noon or tomorrow, it's going to get done. It's not going to derail this.
It's almost like an eye roll a little bit, but go ahead, John.
I agree with you. I think this is a Washington story and not a rest of America story. The market isn't selling off. When we looked at how these shutdowns tend to affect the economy, we see very little imprint on economic data, economic activity.
Does time frame matter at all on that a little bit?
If it drags on a couple weeks, then it could start to accumulate. But still, you've seen the last time we had a shutdown that went on for more than 10 days in 2013, we got 4% growth out of the economy. We had one of the best quarters we've had in this whole expansion. So I don't think Americans are, frankly, going to pay a lot of attention to this.
That is interesting, Lee.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they're going to pay attention to this, but I think it's one more proof point on why the American people are so fed up with Congress. And that's not, I think it's totally separate from how they feel about the president. Congress is at gridlock. They're not working together. And people look at the president, whether they like him or not, as a separate issue. And so I think that one of the things that we're going to see is that the continued distrust of the establishment is just going to derail how things are going to look in the midterms.
Does that actually play into Trump's hands? Because he's the outsider and he's kind of been handed this.
Yeah, and if you look at focus groups and if you look at how people are talking about the president, they see him as a fighter. Despite the fact that he might leave to go to Florida on the weekends, they're saying, you know what, he's saying hands off, Congress, do your job. And so, on the left, they're looking at it and saying you're taking another vacation, but they're, he has been taking meetings while he's there. They talked about how he was having conversations with Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell. He had other meetings this weekend. And so, the question is, how is he going to be viewed? Most often, presidents are blamed for the shutdown, but I'm not sure that's going to happen this time.
To some degree, you're right. He thinks that he can win politically on this, but the Democrats also think they have leverage, which could lead us to a longer shutdown. But let's listen to Mick Mulvaney for a moment. Of course, is the OMB director. He was on the shows over the weekend talking about the Democrats posturing over this shutdown. Here he is.
It's almost as if they're so beholden to their left wing that they can't give the president even a victory on keeping the government open. I really do believe that at heart here there was an interest by some folks in the Democrat Party to deny the president sort of the victory lap of the anniversary of his inauguration, the chance to talk about the success with the tax bill, success with the economy and jobs. It could go several days because I think there's other Democrats who want to see the president give the State of the Union during a shutdown.
That's an interesting argument, and I see kind of both sides of it. I would say one thing, Mike, that stands out to me. We talked about this a little bit on the show on Friday. is that, yes, it does take away the argument about good news in the economy and the market and everything, but that's kind of the point to some degree that could come back to bite the White House a little. They would much rather the four of us be sitting around here talking about a stock market hovering at record highs and an economy that's kind of going on all cylinders, right, than the shutdown. You know?
For sure. And so now the focus switches off all the positive economic news right now. But I think the main point is everyone seems to agree that this is a short-term event, that we can resolve. This will get resolved. Someone will give in. Probably both sides give in a little bit. It gets resolved, and we get back to focusing on earnings and the economy.
But go ahead, John.
Well, what I was going to say is the focus only switches if the market switches its focus, right? So if stock prices keep going up, then our headline is going to be stock prices keep rising, even though there's a government shutdown. So, you know, that's why I'm very interested to see how the market behaves.
Yeah, it's doing nothing for them. I mean, pulling back a little bit on the futures this morning, where they're down 49 on down futures, but for the most part, doing nothing this morning, which is kind of part of the story. Yeah, you know, Mike brought up how this is going to be a short-term event, or there seems to be some thinking this is a short-term event. There was some political back and forth yesterday that they didn't get something done last night, which that they didn't. There is the possibility that this thing could drag on a little bit. Lee, what's your thought on that?
Look, and there's no indication that they're really willing to compromise, because they're talking about two separate issues. You know, I know that the Republicans have gone out there and said, we will talk about DACA, and there are certain things that we're willing to negotiate on as long as you give us the border wall. Right. And the Democrats are saying we're not willing to negotiate on the budget and spending unless we're going to talk about DACA. They're apple and orange conversation. And so I don't see how they're going to let up when they're both making such statements saying we are not coming to the table until we deal with the issues.
Mitch McConnell's promised a DACA funding vote by February 8th if they don't, get things done by then, which seemed to be the concession, such as it was last night.
You know, when this happened back in 2013, I can remember looking and researching and seeing what's going to close down, how's this going to affect me, business. But now I think people have gotten past that, and we realize that really the people getting affected are military personnel, and I don't think either side really wants to affect them. So I think that's why both sides kind of have to give in a little bit.
And the larger point on that, whether it's military personnel or other federal workers, history shows is they get, for what it's worth, I know it's painful at the time, they get their money back. I mean, Congress is not going to not vote.
We also have to remember they found a way to shut their government down without shutting the government down. You know, let's not forget most of the parks were open this weekend. A lot of personnel have been declared essential services in this case. So this isn't actually hitting.
That's always that argument about you don't want to be on that list of a non-essential employee, but they apparently added to it. In a moment.